the First. I'm Nichelle Poston along with Mark Eichman. Shirley Min is off this week, but she did leave a report for this week's show.
And that story has to do with plastic bags. If you had to pay a fee to use them in the grocery store, would you use less of them?
Students in one Smyrna school know how to make the best of opportunities before them when it comes to video production. We head to class for some TV 101 lessons.
And travel to Dagsboro, where stained glass is the theme. That's as easy to see as one fish, blue fish. First, your public media news magazine starts now. We mentioned that Shirley Min is off this week, but she left us a report on a piece of legislation that could have a wide-ranging impact if passed. It has to do with the way you take your groceries home from the store. Here's Shirley to explain.
Cutting down on the number of plastic bags we use is the idea behind a bill making the rounds in Legg Hall. If passed, Delaware would be the first state to enact a law charging a nickel for each plastic or paper bag used. We hash out the arguments for and against the measure in this week's First Look.
We all have them and use them without giving it a second thought. These thin, noisy plastic bags are everywhere, and that's the problem.
Plastic bags are a detriment to our society. You'll find that a lot of your flooding results from plastic bags getting clogged up in the sewer areas. You find birds, wildlife eat the plastic bags, and when they find them dead on the beaches. And then folk also just don't dispose of the bags properly. You'll find them blowing around on the streets.
And Wilmington City Council President Theo Gregory is tired of it. He, along with the rest of council, recently said yes please to House Bill 202, a plastic bag bill in Delaware.
A show of unified support coming from the largest municipality in the state of Delaware, saying that we think that this is a good idea.
The pending legislation would require big stores like supermarkets and drugstores to charge customers 5 cents for each single-use carry-out bag used. In other words, if you want a bag, you're going to have to pay for it.
Now, that's not a cost that they must incur because they can bring a bag. They can bring the same kind, the single use, or they can bring a heavier bag.
Republican state lawmaker Deborah Hudson is the unlikely sponsor of the bill.
I've had people say they were shocked at my attention to a bill of this sort, but I just think it's an issue that's coming. It just seems like a good thing to do for the environment and so easy.
And all of those nickels spent on bags will go towards recycling education programs, according to the bill.
No money is going to the state, so it's not a tax. You're really just paying for this single-use bag. And we hope to educate people that there's a better way to do it than to take home a bag that takes 10 years to degrade.
Dee Durham helped to work on the bill from start to finish. She's co-chair of Bring Your Own Bag Delaware.
No state has yet enacted a plastic bag bill. Lots of counties have done it and lots of cities. So it is being done all across the United States, and our bill is mirrored after those. The idea behind this bill is that if you really need a bag, you consciously pay for it. Right now, everyone's paying for them, whether they use them or not, because it's hidden in the cost of your groceries. So this is a voluntary choice that you would make to pay this fee.
The bill has a ways to go before it comes up for a vote. And so far, the biggest argument against it has been it'll hit the poor the hardest.
I believe that that's an excuse for those people who don't want to use multi-use bags. I've not heard that aggressively from the poor. I've heard that from the non-poor.
This Wilmington Save-A-Lot on Lancaster Avenue is in a low-income area. It already charges 5 cents for its bags as part of company policy.
Most people brought their own bags, although some were paying for it. And I asked the cashier if people have complained to him, and he said no. So I think that it's not a big deal. I think people, once they learn and understand the point here, it becomes automatic.
We all have an obligation to our environment. Because you're poor and you have limited resources, you should not be forgiven from protecting our environment for the next generations to come.
Statistics have each of us taking home about 500 plastic bags a year.
It's estimated that only 7 to 9% of the single-use plastic bags are reused or recycled. So that means, more than 90% of the bags are either ending up in the landfill or ending up out in our environment, in our oceans, in our watersheds, hanging in our trees.
Cleanup that wastes tax dollars and Durham ads endangers our food supply.
You also have plastic being found in fish markets. So plastic bags do not biodegrade, they're not biodegradable, but they do degrade, photodegrade, and then the little bits of plastic end up in our food chain. So it's actually, a health issue in terms of toxics getting into our food chain.
Durham says plastic bags were only invented in 1977. We survived just fine before then, and we can survive without them again, should the law pass.
House Bill 202 expands on Delaware's existing plastic bag recycling program, which requires those large stores to provide plastic bag recycling bins, usually by the doors. And one thing I learned, those plastic bags aren't supposed to go into your curbside recycling bin because they can jam up all the machinery. So those bags should go back to the stores in their respective bag bins.
So what is the chances for this bill getting done?
It's not looking good. A straw vote shows that state lawmakers are really split on the issue, but Representative Hudson says if this goes nowhere this session, it will return next session.
And this is not going to affect those mom and pop shops, or really the bigger stores.
Right, so the bodegas are not included in this bill, but what we are talking about those stores that are 7,000 square feet or more, or stores with 3 locations in the state, at least 3,000 square feet.
And this is not the first place this will be done. Other counties and cities have done it before.
Right.
What's been the response there? What are they seeing?
Well, so far the response has been really good. Dee Durham uses Washington, D.C. as an example. So as soon as they passed a bill very similar in nature, they saw a 65% drop in plastic bag usage and pollution. So that's a really big payout for not a huge step.
All right, thanks so much, Shirley. Continuing coverage can be found online at newsworks.org/Delaware.
Coming up on First, lights, camera, well, you know the rest. Check out what these kids in Smyrna know about television. You'll be impressed. Then travel a little further downstate to experience some wonderful stained glass in Dagsboro. State of Play time on First. Welcome Stephanie Hansen of the law firm of Young, Conaway, Stargett and Taylor, and Michael Stafford is also here with us. He's an attorney, columnist, and occasional MSNBC contributor. Next week, Mayor Dennis Williams will face 7 different people to fight for his job, who basically want his job. We're going to have a little fun and role play. If you were Mayor Williams, what would be your policy? The topic next week will be public safety, and I'm going to start with you, Michael Stafford.
My policy, I would get up and I would say the problems of poverty and economic decline and the urban issues we're dealing with transcend the ability of any one mayor or administration to control. I would highlight what I've done. He's had some new initiatives with the police department, but I mean, quite honestly, these are national issues, and certainly Wilmington has become, at least with respect to the murder rate, more violent than other major urban areas. So we can certainly do better. But the poverty that's driving all of this, what's a mayor to do? I mean, you're one guy. You've got a limited budget. So maybe that's why I'm not running for mayor, because I really don't have a solution.
I understand. Fair enough. What about you, Stephanie?
Well, I think personality-wise, he would come out kind of strong, and he would say, look, these problems have been going on for a long time. They didn't start overnight. They didn't start over a period of time. They're not going to get solved over a period of time. You want a mayor that's doing exactly what I'm doing, which is we are trying new initiatives all the time. Some of them are going to work. Some of them aren't going to work. We're on top of things. Now we brought in a consultant who is famous nationally for being able to solve the problems. We got to give this time to work through the system. I think we're going to do it. Just wait till my next crime report comes out. You're going to see I'm on top. I'm always on top.
You actually sound like him.
I know.
No, I'm joking. Okay, so are you guys familiar with some of the other candidates?
In a general way.
Okay, in a general way.
I wouldn't want to speak as any particular person. I mean, I mean, look, there's no magic bullet or policy or policing program or methodology that's gonna cure all of this stuff. If I was one of the challengers, I would focus on trust. I would focus on trust, not a particular, not a particular program, but trust,
Okay.
and that trust has been broken between the community and this particular administration, and that can't be healed. That would be my pitch. That whatever else is going on, it's being exacerbated by him and by his continued presence in office, and that for the community to heal and for everybody to move on, these are things that have to happen.
Okay. What do you think a candidate should say in response to if he says, hey, I tried new initiatives and I'm continuing to try? What do you think?
I think what they could say is that, well, we paid over $200,000 as taxpayers. The General Assembly put together a large couple of consultants that came together, did a large study of what's wrong with Wilmington policing, of how to solve the crime problem, and they came up with a report that had over 100 different initiatives and things that needed to be fixed. The only thing that's been fixed so far has been all the low-hanging fruit, all the cheap stuff, all the easy stuff. Now it's time to do the hard stuff. You want somebody that's not afraid to start doing the hard stuff, and that's going to be me. The unfortunate reality is it costs a lot of money to run statewide. And I'll just give you one statistic, because I know this as a fact. To do one mailing, one of those little postcard mailings, just to Newcastle County, the voters in Newcastle County, in a Democratic primary, $24,000. Now multiply that by 3, because you got 3
Right,
counties
3
and it's statewide. That's for one postcard mailing. And you've got to do a lot more than one postcard mailing. You've got to do a few things to get your name out in front of people. There's billboards, there's TV, there's radio, there's mailings. All of those things cost money. And if you can't raise the money to get your name out there in front of people, there's no sense in running, because you're not going to win.
Yeah.
So I guess in this day and age, social media simply isn't enough.
It's not enough. It's an important part of a campaign. It's become every election it becomes more and more important, but you can't run a campaign on just social media. There are a lot of people that vote that aren't on Facebook, and they're not going to be on Facebook. And there's a particular demographic, and I may be even part of that demographic, that proudly proclaims that they are not part of social media. So you have to get to them by more traditional means, and it's a good $500,000 to run a campaign that he's talking about.
You need to build an infrastructure, an organization, and when you look at the other people in the race, I mean, Brian Townsend is an excellent campaigner, and he has a clear constituency here. I mean, he hasn't explicitly positioned himself as kind of the protest candidate, but he is probably to the left on some of the issues as compared to the other two. And then you've got Sean Barney, who has a statewide race. He's done it before. He's got the organization. People know he's got the name recognition.
Let's talk about Sean Barney and Brian Townsend. Who do you think is going to possibly take the seat, or where do you think the race is between those two?
They're both good guys.
Yeah.
I mean, I think this is another situation where we're talking about 2 people who are well qualified, and we wouldn't have a problem with any of them. We're also, remember, we're not talking about Lisa Blunt Bradley. She's also, I think she's still in the race, but we're,
Who?
I know.
Okay. I mean, it's she's in the race, you're right, but where's the presence?
Yeah.
At all. I mean, if you're going to be a candidate, you can't fly under the radar when you've got a primary to win. It's playing on people's fears, and it really is stigmatizing people who, are being driven out of their homes and are moving to the other end of the world.
Okay.
And what are you going to do with the list? Like what happens with that list is, when they go to get a driver's license, are they going to need to check on the list?
Right.
Are you on the list? When they go to register the kids for school, are they going to be on the list? What are you going to use the list for?
Well, thanks so much, Stephanie Hansen, Michael Stafford,
Thank you.
for being a part of State of Play. For those of you at home, you can watch all of this at newsworks.org/Delaware.
22 years ago, Tom Carper was in his first term as Delaware governor. Ann Vasali was in her first year in state government as well. Now in 2016, Ann Vasali is the outgoing budget director for Governor Jack Markell. She made that announcement last week, and she's our first person this week. Ann, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Mark. Thanks for having me.
So you've been working with Governor Markell for almost 2 decades before he was governor. Really has been a team effort between you two to guide the state through really one of the most difficult periods in state financial history.
Well, 2009, when I was sworn in, January 2009, just when people didn't think things could get worse, they did. In March of that year, revenues fell $200 million. So we were sort of putting together the governor's first budget, and at the same time, we had to balance out the end of 2009. So it was very stressful, a lot of working hours. I really don't think I could have done my job at such a difficult time for anyone other than Governor Markell. We already had been working together in the state treasurer's office when he was treasurer, and even prior to that, I was his analyst when I worked for the legislature. So we had a very strong foundation to rely on, but things were tough. They improved a little bit in 2012, but really the country and our peers are still working hard to try to get out of the doldrums and shake off some of the effects of the Great Recession.
And so Governor Markell has, I guess, about 9 months left in office. Typically, we see this as his cabinet starts to move on to other things, kind of a case of right opportunity at the right time for you?
That's exactly right. I feel very grateful and fortunate. I'm going to the St. Andrews School, so I'll be able to stay right here in Delaware where I've made my home, my commitment. It's a great balance between my skill set in finance and operations management, but also really values-based and really being able to apply those skills for the greater good, continue my commitment to service.
Obviously, the national economy has improved in the past 8 years from where it was in 08, 09 when Governor Markell and you came into to leadership in the state. The state economy has improved almost along those same lines. Is the state out of the worst of the worst?
I do feel that I've sort of lived through the Great Depression, and so some of the things we've done, including reducing headcount in state government, becoming more efficient, finding cuts and consolidations where possible, hopefully will help us weather any kind of storm a little bit better than we did then.
So now we're sort of in the middle of the process, I guess, getting closer to the end of the process for this year's budget. And one of the things that was in the governor's budget proposal is healthcare costs. And that's sort of been a focus over the last couple of years, but specifically for state employees this year, he made a big proposal to change the way that's been done. Talk a little bit about how that's played out, how that's sort of gone over and over.
Okay. Well, first of all, the state is not alone. The state government is not alone. So really throughout other governmental entities, the private sector in Delaware is going through this. And really nationally, when I talk to my peers around the country, they're facing the same issue. So the challenge is if we continue to spend more on health care and don't do anything to, one, bend the curve, and two, make employees better consumers of health care and improve people's overall health and well-being, try to get them to help to stop smoking, manage their obesity, exercise more. All of those things are important, including working with our hospitals on payment reform, which we're doing. So we're not alone. We've made progress in that we've got a vote to increase employee premiums, but we do have a proposal to have all new employees go into health savings accounts. This makes them better consumers, gives them a deductible, and will help drive down the costs in state government. The
deadline, obviously, June 30th, as always. I'm guessing you're not going to miss the kind of down to the wire late night on June 30th or a couple days before that week of high pressure to get it done?
Well, I will tell you that last June 30th was a little too close to the finish line for me. We had made some significant progress over the years prior to last year in getting the budget, the decisions made, budget was printed, it was available for the public to review and voted on and passed prior to June 30th. And that was really kind of a measure of success. Last year was a tough one. They were still making decisions on the budget on June 30th. So I'm hoping there's some improvement this year, that we learned some lessons from last year. I'll still be, watching and observing. The majority of my work was finished really in January when we introduced the governor's budget, but typically from now through the end of June we are negotiating with the legislature. We're following the DFAC meetings. There'll be one this month and then again in May and again in June.
Your deputy will be taking over your role. A recommendation for the next budget director going forward in the next year?
I will give him the same advice that the governor has asked us to follow, which I do every day and I have since the beginning of the administration, which is to put ourselves in the shoes of the people that we serve. And I do believe if I do that every morning, which I do when I wake up, it helps you get through the day. So it helps you deal with all the challenges, whether they're legislative, the media, or the public. If I just remember that I'm putting myself in the shoes of the people I serve, it gets you through all the problems.
All right, Ann Vasali, soon to be the Chief Operating Officer for St. Andrew's School in Middletown. Good luck there.
Thank you, Mark.
And thanks so much for your time here on First This Week. You can watch this interview in its entirety at newsworks.org/Delaware.
Stained glass, watercolor painting, and photography. Dagsboro artist Jeffrey Todd Moore does a little bit of everything. A draftsman by trade, he was stuck in a rut watching TV after work. A special calendar changed all that. We visited Jeffrey's home studio to hear his story and see his work.
I started doing art because I was coming home from work, finding that I had spent all day sitting in front of a computer, and then I was coming home and watching television, and I said I have to break this cycle. So I bought an origami a day calendar. Every night I would sit down and do a piece of origami, and I got very sort of into it. And then the next year I decided to pick up a watercolor a day calendar. I took a watercolor workshop, and then I just started painting every night. From there it just continued. I make my living as a draftsman. I work for a soil scientist, and he goes out and collects samples to tell you where you can put your septic on your lot. I do the drawings that get submitted to the county and the state. I started using the computer to sort of inform my watercolors. I wanted not to just paint what I saw, I wanted to sort of press them into other places, and eventually said, why am I painting these? These are kind of cool. That's when I started printing and selling my photography. I don't know why I started doing glass. My photography and my painting started to do a lot of geometric shapes. I don't know if I thought that would lend itself to glass. I'd always been fascinated with glass. And there was a glass shop across from one of the art leagues that I am involved with, and I just walked in there. So my thoughts were, hey, that's the direction I'd like to go. So I took a couple of classes there. I do stained glass, I do glass mosaics, glass on glass mosaics. I'm starting to get into wire wrapping pendants. I think the reason I go from one thing to the next is I get bored quickly. I just keep looking for ways to change this and do this differently. I do it because I think that it's a great way to wash the day away. As soon as I started painting, it was all about the painting. It was no longer about the day. It's like a Zen sort of feeling. This is for me, and hopefully someone will like it and buy it and appreciate it. I think that's what keeps me going. It's always astounding that something that you did touches somebody enough that they're going to fork out money for it. But I'm always just sort of shocked that someone wants to buy something that I created, to be perfectly honest with you. It's a very exciting, nice feeling. I know that my work is all across the states. I know that it's overseas, and that's exciting. That's kind of cool. I hope when they see my stained glass and the light's coming through and the sun's coming through and it's bright and shiny, that it's just brightening their day. I hope they look at it and it makes them happy. I want it to bring color into their world.
You may have noticed this stained glass piece in our story. It was inspired by a Dr. Seuss book. Any guesses as to which book? If you guessed one fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish, you were right. You can get more information on Jeffrey's work when you visit him on the web at jeffreytoddmoore.com.
Smyrna High School news is must-see TV. If it's happening in the school community, you'll see it on the newscast. First went behind the scenes of the program to meet the student staff and teachers who are dedicated to the program's success.
Good morning, Smyrna High, and we are here with WHYY.
All our friends from the last 3 years did it, and we thought it looked really fun. Definitely makes you less shy.
I just remember being a freshman, my second day of school, and the news came on, and I was like, wow, this is so cool.
It was just something I wanted to do, and like all my friends were doing it.
The morning starts bright and early for the cast and crew of Smyrna High School's newscast.
I'm the producer. I am in charge of making sure that the news team goes well. And
I do a little bit of everything. I set up the studio in the morning. I make sure the cameras look good.
The student-run news program has evolved over the years.
This program stretches back to before I was in high school. I mean, it stretches back to the 70s. Back to the teacher that I can think back as farthest is when I was in this school. He was doing claymation projects and snap pics and one at a time, and it was huge.
Today it's a far cry from those early projects.
It's not just a VCR camera that has a coaxial that runs to every TV in the building like it was when I first came here.
Can we zoom out a tad?
It's the job of this news team to be the eyes and ears of the school, and the staff takes that responsibility seriously.
I take away that I have a big role to play, and so does everybody else in the news team, because people look for us and look towards us to know what's going on around the school and what they have to look forward to throughout the school year.
The students also look forward to working with one another.
Me and Caleb just say the news. The whole team, they put it together, they work together, and we work with Alyssa. She brightens our morning every time, and that's the biggest part.
I love my friends.
We do the lunch every day.
Multimedia teacher Joseph Fragel runs the news program.
There's no credits involved, no nothing. It's just a passion they have. They want to be a part of the school.
It's a passion that is seen in the students' commitment.
Well, it's creating a routine and responsibility. You know, every morning they have a set responsibility. A student comes in and they have their job to do. They have to operate this, $10,000 machine, the TriCaster. That's a lot of responsibility for someone who may not even drive a car yet.
While the students perform their duties with the utmost professionalism, sometimes they have to have some fun with it.
Like our first day of school, the teleprompter went whack, and we just started laughing so hard. And like everyone all day came up to us and was like, the Giggle Twins, but we just learned from it.
Despite the occasional technical difficulty, the work that the students are doing is a highlight of the day for many at Smyrna High School.
I'm just very proud. Every time I come in here, I come in and see these guys every morning as one of my duties, and I check in with Mr. Fragel. And that's probably one of the best 5-10 minutes of my day, is seeing these kids shine. They're proud of who they are, and we're proud of them here at Smyrna High.
The Media Arts program was part of the school's effort to bring additional programs to the core curriculum so that students will be able to get real-life experiences to help them make informed decisions about their futures. And it seems to be working. Senior Reggie Ruff, one of the anchors on the news, is planning on pursuing journalism in college.
Next week on First, a change in the way visually impaired students receive classroom help. Delaware officials are offering that help online. Some are having a hard time adjusting to the change. And check out 50 Shades of Faye. You'll never think of aging the same way again.
And before we go, we have 3 reasons to thank you. The Delaware Press Association has awarded First as Best Newscast, Best Talk Show, and Best Interview Program. It's always nice, of course, when one is recognized for their work.
Congratulations to the crew here and everyone associated with the show. That is First for this week. We do thank you for watching. For Shirley Min, who will be back next week, and Mark Eichman, I'm Nichelle Polston. Don't forget to watch First online at WHYY.org/First. Have a great week.